Captain Soo-Jin Yoon stood on the bridge of Proxima Centauri Station, watching the evacuation ships leave the colony world below. The planet held 3 million human settlers who had spent their lives building homes, farms, and cities in the red light of the distant star. Now they had less than 30 days to abandon everything they had worked for. The massive alien fleet was visible on the long-range sensors, still 2 days away, but growing larger every hour. Admiral Vexthul commanded over 3,000 ships from 12 different species. Each vessel bristled with weapons that could crack planets, and their combined firepower was enough to sterilize every human colony in known space. "Captain, we're getting strange readings from the outer planets," reported Tactical Officer Woo Bin Han from his station. His young face was tense with concentration as he studied the sensor displays. "Energy signatures are appearing throughout the system, but they don't match any human technology." Soo-Jin moved to his station and looked at the readings. Massive power sources were lighting up across their sensors, emerging from locations where nothing should exist. The signatures were coming from within Jupiter's Great Red Spot, from beneath the polar ice caps of Mars, and from dozens of asteroids that had seemed completely normal just hours before. "Are they alien ships?" Soo-Jin asked, though she already suspected the answer was more complicated. "I don't think so, Captain. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our database. They're more powerful than anything the Galactic Council species use, but the basic structure seems familiar somehow." Back on Earth, Dr. Lee's team worked around the clock in the underwater facility. They had managed to activate more of the ancient systems, and the holographic displays now showed real-time information about the approaching alien fleet. But more importantly, they had found the facility's communication array. Mi Young stood before a crystalline control panel that responded to her touch like it was designed for human hands. The translation work was becoming easier as she understood more of the ancient language. It was like learning to remember something she had once known but forgotten. "I think I can activate the communication system," she told Dr. Lee and Jinnah. "The instructions are becoming clearer. It's almost like the facility wants to be understood by us." Jinnah watched the holographic displays showing the alien fleet approaching human space. "We need to warn our people about what we've found here. But first we need to understand what these installations throughout the solar system actually are." Mi Young pressed her hands against the crystal panel and spoke the activation sequence she had learned from the ancient records. The facility immediately came alive with new energy. Lights that had been dormant for millions of years began to glow, and the communication array sent out a signal using mathematical patterns that matched the oldest human texts. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On Proxima Centauri Station, Woo Bin Han nearly fell from his chair as his sensors exploded with new contacts. "Captain, you need to see this. Energy signatures are appearing all over the solar system. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds." Admiral Taewon Shin was in his command center on Luna Base when the reports started coming in from observation stations throughout Earth's solar system. Objects were powering up inside Jupiter's storms, rising from beneath Mars's ice, and emerging from asteroid belts where they had hidden for countless years. "Sir, the readings are incredible," his science officer reported. "Some of these signatures are larger than our biggest space stations. The smallest one we've detected is 10 kilometers long." Admiral Shin stared at the tactical display showing Earth's solar system. Red dots appeared everywhere, marking power sources that had been invisible just hours before. The largest signature was coming from deep within Jupiter's Great Red Spot, and it was the size of a small moon. "What are they?" he asked, though he was beginning to suspect an answer that seemed impossible. "We're not sure, sir, but they're all transmitting identification signals now. The signals are in an ancient form of mathematics that appears in our oldest historical records. And, sir, they're claiming to be human vessels." The news reached Proxima Centauri Station within minutes. Captain Soo-Jin received the transmission from Admiral Shin with growing amazement and disbelief. Hidden throughout their home solar system were ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, and they were somehow connected to Earth's ancient past. "Captain, we're receiving a direct transmission," Woo Bin reported. "It's coming from the largest signature near Jupiter. The message is addressed specifically to Human Military Command." Soo-Jin accepted the transmission, expecting to hear an alien voice or at least a computer-generated translation. Instead, she heard someone speaking perfect Korean with a Seoul accent. "This is Commander Kyung-Ho Park of the Terran Expeditionary Forces," responding to awakening protocol activation. Please identify yourself and your current situation. Sujin stared at her communications officer in shock. Run a voice analysis on that transmission. Check it against all human databases. The results came back within minutes. Captain, the voice patterns match human speech perfectly. But the transmission is coming from coordinates inside Jupiter's storm system. That's impossible for any technology we possess. Sujin took a deep breath and activated the response channel. Commander Park, this is Captain Sujin Yoon of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are currently facing invasion by a combined alien fleet of over 3,000 ships. They have given humanity 30 days to evacuate all colonies and return to Earth space. There was a pause before Commander Park responded.
Captain Yoon, please confirm your timeline reference.
What is the current Earth date? October 15th, 2387, Sujin replied. Another long pause. Captain, I need to bring you up to date on some information that may be classified above your clearance level. My ship and crew have been in automated stasis for approximately 60,000 years. We represent the advance elements of the first colonization wave, and we have been monitoring this sector for the return of a specific threat. Sujin felt the bridge spinning around her. 60,000 years? That was long before recorded human history, before civilization itself. Commander, that's impossible. Humans didn't have spaceflight 60,000 years ago. We barely had agriculture. Captain, I understand your confusion, but there are things about human history that were deliberately hidden to protect future generations. Your people are not the first humans to reach the stars. You are the second wave, placed on Earth as a safeguard after the first civilization made a terrible sacrifice to save the galaxy. Throughout the solar system, more ancient ships were coming online. Their crews were awakening from stasis systems that had kept them alive since before the last ice age on Earth. Each ship was massive, built with technology that seemed impossible, and crewed by humans who remembered a galactic civilization that their descendants had never known existed. Fleet Admiral Hae-won, Jung awakened in her command chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Dawn. Her ship had been hidden in the asteroid belt for 6 decades of millennia, waiting for the signal that would mean either humanity's children had grown strong enough to reclaim their heritage, or that the ancient enemy had returned. As her consciousness fully returned, she accessed the monitoring reports that her ship's computers had compiled over the centuries. Modern humanity had developed faster than expected, but they had also attracted attention from the current galactic powers. More troubling, the deep space sensors were detecting energy signatures that matched the cosmic threat her generation had fought so long ago. Communications, establish contact with all awakening vessels, she ordered. Begin full activation of the defensive grid. And someone get me a complete briefing on the current state of human development. Her tactical officer, a man who had last seen Earth when it was covered in ice, studied the sensor readings with growing concern. Admiral, the alien fleet approaching human space is substantial, but that's not our primary concern. Deep space monitoring shows energy signatures consistent with Devourer scout forces. They're still 3 months out, but they're definitely coming. Admiral Young felt the weight of 60,000 years of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Then it's time our descendants learned why they were really created. And it's time the galaxy understood what humanity has been hiding all along. Admiral Vex Thule stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the tactical display show his massive fleet entering human space. 3,000 ships from 12 different species surrounded him, their weapons powered and ready for what should be an easy victory. The primitive humans had perhaps 200 vessels in total, most of them barely worthy of the name warship. Sir, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the inner human system, his sensor operator reported. Multiple contacts appearing on long-range scans. Vexthul dismissed the report with a wave of his clawed hand. Human reinforcements from their homeworld. It matters little. Even if they have twice as many ships as we estimated, they cannot match our firepower. But as his fleet moved deeper into human space, the sensor readings became impossible to ignore. The contacts were not coming from Earth's direction. They were emerging from empty space throughout the solar system, revealing themselves after being hidden for an impossible length of time. The first ancient ship to fully materialize was the Silent Guardian, rising from beneath the ice caps of Mars. Captain Sujin watched from Proxima Centauri station as her sensors tried to measure the massive vessel. Her instruments could barely comprehend what they were seeing. Captain, the ship is over 50 kilometers long, Wu Bin reported, his voice filled with amazement. Its hull is made of materials that don't exist in any database. And the energy output? It's generating more power than our entire colony. More ships appeared across the solar system. They rose from Jupiter's storms like ancient sea monsters breaking the surface of an endless ocean. They detached themselves from asteroids where they had waited in perfect camouflage. They powered up from deep within the rings of Saturn, their massive forms dwarfing the ice and rock that had hidden them. Each ship was enormous beyond belief. The smallest stretched 10 kilometers from bow to stern, while the largest measured over 100 kilometers in length. Their hulls bore designs that seemed to incorporate technologies the current galaxy had never imagined. Metals that bent light around them, energy fields that warped space itself, and weapons systems that made the most advanced alien dreadnoughts look like children's toys. On his flagship, Admiral Vexthul watched his confident advance turn into growing alarm as his sensors revealed the true scope of what was emerging from hiding. "How many ships are we detecting?" he demanded. "Sir, the count keeps rising. We have confirmed over 200 large vessels, with more appearing every hour. Some of these ships are larger than our battle stations." Vexthul studied the tactical display with growing disbelief. The human home system was revealing a hidden fleet that rivaled the combined navies of the entire Galactic Council. But that was impossible. Humans had only been in space for 2 centuries. They were primitive newcomers who had barely learned to leave their own solar system. "Analyze their technology," he ordered. "I want to know how humans acquired ships like these." The answer came not from his science teams, but from a direct transmission on quantum frequencies that should not have existed. The voice that spoke was human, but the technology transmitting it was beyond anything in Vexthul's experience. "Admiral Vexthul of the Draknari Empire, this is Fleet Admiral Heywan Young of the Terran Expeditionary Forces. You will halt your advance immediately and prepare to receive official communications regarding the current galactic situation." Vexthul's translator struggled with the transmission, not because of language barriers, but because the quantum encryption was more advanced than anything the Galactic Council possessed. When his communications officer managed to establish a return channel, Vexthul found himself looking at a human female in a uniform, unlike anything worn by the primitive humans he had encountered before. "I am Admiral Vexthul, commanding this fleet under the authority of the Galactic Council. You will identify yourself and explain how humans came to possess ships of this size." Fleet Admiral Young regarded him with eyes that seemed far older than her face. "Admiral, I am going to share information with you that will be difficult to accept. The humans you have been dealing with are our genetic descendants, placed on Earth 60,000 years ago after our civilization made the ultimate sacrifice to save this galaxy from a threat you cannot imagine." "That is impossible," Vexthul replied. "Human civilization is barely 10,000 years old. They had no spaceflight until 2 centuries ago." "You are correct about their recent development," Jung acknowledged. "That was by design. After the first human civilization defeated the Devourers, we chose to enter stasis and allow the galaxy to develop naturally. While our genetic legacy grew on Earth, they were meant to live peacefully until 2 conditions were met. Either they developed into worthy heirs of our technology, or the cosmic threat returned." Admiral Jung activated a holographic display that showed the current galaxy from a perspective Vexthul had never seen. "Admiral, your council's records only go back 50,000 years. You have no knowledge of what came before, because your civilizations did not exist when humanity fought the war that saved reality itself." The display showed star maps from an ancient time when the galaxy looked completely different. Civilizations that Vexthul had never heard of controlled vast territories. Technologies existed that could build stars or move entire solar systems. And at the center of it all, humanity's first galactic empire had served as guardians against entities that came from beyond the edge of known space. "The Devourers were not merely invaders," Jung explained. "They were living entropy, beings that consumed not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence. They fed on reality itself, leaving behind spaces where nothing could ever exist again." Vexthul's sensors were now detecting hundreds of ancient human ships throughout the solar system. Each one was a masterwork of technology that his civilization could not hope to match. Weapons that could ignite stars, shields that could withstand the explosion of supernovas, and propulsion systems that moved through dimensions his science barely knew existed. Captain Min Ho Song of the ancient vessel Eternal Vigil activated his ship's demonstration protocols. His vessel, which had been disguised as a simple asteroid for 60 millennia, revealed its true capabilities. The ship's hull seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making it impossible for enemy targeting systems to lock onto it. This is why modern humanity developed so quickly. Jung continued her explanation to the increasingly overwhelmed alien admiral. They carry genetic memories of technologies they never learned. Their rapid expansion was not aggression. It was an unconscious drive to establish defensive positions against the returning threat. Throughout Admiral Vexthal's fleet, panic was beginning to spread. His ship's computers were trying to analyze the human vessels and failing completely. The ancient technology operated on principles that current galactic science could not understand. What threat? Vexthal demanded, though part of him already feared the answer. Jung's expression became grim. Our deep space monitors have detected Devourer scout forces approaching this galaxy. They are still months away, but they are definitely coming. The rapid human expansion was not random. They were unconsciously preparing defensive networks against an enemy they don't remember but their genes recognize. She paused to let this information sink in. Admiral, your council's fleet was not assembled to punish humanity for breaking expansion laws. You were manipulated into gathering here by genetic programming, buried in your species' DNA. The Devourers need concentrated life forces to feed upon when they arrive, and they influenced your leaders to create exactly what they require, a massive fleet gathered in one location. The tactical display around Vexthal's bridge began showing new contacts at the edge of sensor range. Dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself were moving toward the galaxy from the empty spaces between star clusters. The war you remember from legends and myths is about to begin again, Jung announced, and humanity, both ancient and modern, stands ready to defend this galaxy one more time. The question is whether the current civilizations will stand with us, or whether they will become food for entities that view entire star systems as appetizers. Admiral Vexthal looked around his bridge at officers who had served the Galactic Council faithfully for decades. Their expressions showed the same shock and fear that he felt. Everything they thought they knew about the galaxy, about humanity, and about their own place in the universe had just been revealed as carefully constructed illusions designed to prepare for a war beyond imagination. Dr. Donghyun Lee sat in his office beneath the streets of Seoul, surrounded by ancient artifacts and holographic displays showing dig sites from around the world. The Terrestrial Archaeological Division had been his life's work for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for the message that appeared on his secure terminal at exactly midnight. The encryption was unlike anything he had ever seen. Mathematical sequences flowed across his screen in patterns that made his eyes water to look at directly, but somehow his mind could understand them. The numbers felt familiar, like a half-remembered song from childhood. Coordinates appeared on his display, a location in the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, in the Mariana Trench. Depth readings showed the target was buried beneath layers of sediment that would take millions of years to accumulate. The message also contained references to ancient texts that Dr. Lee had spent years studying, Sumerian tablets that spoke of watchers from the deep and Egyptian hieroglyphs describing the guardians beneath the waves. Dr. Lee reached for his communication device to call his research partner, but stopped when more text appeared on his screen. Time grows short. The watchers wake. Seek the truth beneath the ancient waters before the stars align against the children of Earth. Then the message vanished, leaving no trace in his computer's memory banks. 3 hours later, Jinnah Park's transport touched, down at the military airfield outside Seoul. The long flight from the Galactic Council station had given her time to think about Elder Thaxmion's strange behavior and what it might mean. She had barely stepped off the ship when her secure communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Dr. Lee. They met at his laboratory as the sun rose over the city. Dr. Lee showed Jinnah the empty computer terminal where the mysterious message had appeared, but he had written down every detail before it disappeared. The mathematical sequences match patterns I found in ruins across Earth, Dr. Lee explained, spreading physical documents across his desk. Look at this tablet from ancient Babylon. These symbols appear in Egyptian tombs. Similar patterns show up in Mayan calendars and even Aboriginal Australian rock paintings. Jinnah studied the papers with her trained eye for alien languages and symbols. Her work with dozens of galactic species had taught her to recognize patterns that crossed cultural boundaries. What she saw made her hands shake slightly. "These aren't human in origin," she said quietly. "The mathematical concepts are too advanced for any ancient Earth civilization. But they're not from any current galactic species either." "The structure is completely different," Dr. Lee nodded grimly. "That's what I thought too. And the coordinates in the message point to a location that's been sealed under miles of ocean for over 60 million years." Within 12 hours, they were aboard the research vessel Deep Explorer, heading toward the coordinates in the Mariana Trench. The ship carried the most advanced deep-sea exploration equipment that Earth possessed, including submersibles designed to withstand the crushing pressure of the deepest ocean. Dr. Mi-Young Choi joined them during the voyage. As Earth's leading xenolinguist, she had worked with Jinnah on first contact protocols with 17 different alien species. Her specialty was breaking down the basic structure of completely unknown languages and finding ways to understand them. "I've been analyzing the mathematical sequences you sent me," Mi-Young told them as they watched the endless Pacific waves roll past the ship. "They're not just numbers. They're instructions, but written in a way that doesn't match any known communication system. It's like the message was designed to be understood by human minds specifically, but using concepts that humans shouldn't know." The Deep Explorer reached the coordinates after 2 days of travel. Sonar readings showed something massive buried beneath the ocean floor, much larger than any natural formation. The object stretched for several kilometers in each direction and rose almost 1,000 meters from the seafloor. Dr. Lee piloted the first submersible down toward the buried structure. The pressure outside was enough to crush a human body instantly, but the small submarine was built to handle the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. As they descended, their lights began to reveal artificial surfaces beneath the accumulated sediment of millions of years. "It's definitely not natural," Dr. Lee reported over the communication system. "The surfaces are too smooth, too regular. And look at this material. It's not metal, not stone, but something else entirely." Jinnah and Mi-Young followed in the second submersible. When their lights joined Dr. Lee's, the true size of the buried structure became clear. Smooth walls stretched beyond their vision, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. They found an opening that had been sealed with the same strange material as the walls. When Dr. Lee's submersible approached, the seal simply dissolved as if recognizing their presence. Inside, they discovered chambers filled with water that was somehow breathable, maintained at a comfortable temperature despite being at the bottom of the ocean. The first chamber they entered was vast, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. Crystalline formations grew from the floor and walls, pulsing with soft light that provided illumination, but it was the center of the room that took their breath away. A holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, but not as they knew it today. Star systems were marked with symbols they didn't recognize. Entire regions showed different patterns of civilization and development. And Earth was marked with a symbol that pulsed with the same rhythm as a human heartbeat. Mi-Young approached the display with her translation equipment. As she worked, more holographic images appeared around the chamber. They showed scenes of space battles on a scale beyond imagination, fleets of ships so large they blotted out stars, and weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. "I'm getting some basic translations," Mi-Young reported, her voice filled with excitement and fear. "This is a monitoring station. It's been watching Earth for millions of years. But not just watching, recording everything that happens in this part of the galaxy." More chambers revealed themselves as they explored deeper into the structure. Each room contained more crystalline data storage and holographic displays. The technology was so advanced that their instruments could barely measure its capabilities. In the deepest chamber they could reach, they found the most disturbing discovery of all. The holographic records showed Earth's history, but with events that no human civilization had ever recorded. The extinction of the dinosaurs was shown not as an asteroid impact, but as collateral damage from a massive space battle that raged in Earth's orbit 65 million years ago. "Look at this," Dr. Lee called out, standing before a display that showed Earth surrounded by massive ships engaged in combat. Weapons fire that could crack moons struck the planet's atmosphere, causing the environmental disasters that ended the age of dinosaurs. Mi-young worked frantically to translate more of the records. What she found made her step back from the display in shock. According to this, every major extinction event in Earth's history coincided with galactic wars. The planet wasn't just caught in the crossfire, it was protected by someone. Ships took hits meant for Earth, drew fire away from the planet. Gina studied the data with growing amazement. Someone has been watching over Earth for millions of years. But who and why? The answer came when Mi-young translated a set of records that showed the Watchers themselves. The images were unclear, but the basic shape was unmistakably human. Not exactly like modern humans, but close enough that they could be the same species separated by time and evolution. The records call them the Guardian's Children, and mention something about vessels of the first dawn, Mi-young reported. But there are references to other locations, other installations hidden throughout this solar system. As they prepared to leave the underwater facility, more displays activated around them. Star charts appeared showing locations throughout Earth's solar system, coordinates hidden within Jupiter's storms, beneath the ice caps of Mars scattered through asteroid fields, and buried beneath the surface of the Moon. Dr. Lee looked at his companions with growing understanding of the magnitude of their discovery. This isn't just a monitoring station, it's a command center, and if these records are accurate, we're not alone in this solar system. We've never been alone. The massive chamber stretched for kilometers in every direction. Crystal walls rose high above, reflecting the lights of 1,000 worlds. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the floating platforms that circled the center stage. Their voices created a strange symphony of clicks, hums, and translated speech that echoed through the vast space. Commander Hyunwoo Kim stood alone on the central platform. His dark blue uniform looked simple compared to the elaborate costumes and natural armor of the beings around him. He kept his face calm, but his hands were slightly clenched behind his back. The weight of representing all of humanity pressed on his shoulders. Above him, holographic displays showed star maps with red zones marking human colonies. 17 systems glowed with the harsh red light that meant violation in the Galactic Council's language. Each red mark represented millions of human lives, families who had traveled across the void to build new homes among the stars. Admiral Vex Thul of the Draknari Empire rose from his platform. His reptilian form was covered in dark scales that reflected the chamber's lights like metal. When he spoke, his forked tongue flickered between razor-sharp teeth. The translation device made his words sound cold and official. Honored council members, we gather today to address a growing threat to galactic order. His clawed hand gestured toward the star maps. The species calling themselves humans have violated the expansion accords 17 times in the past 2 centuries. They spread across star systems like a plague, taking worlds without permission, building colonies without proper authorization. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many species nodded their various heads or made sounds that meant approval in their languages. Hyunwoo noticed that most of these supporters were from the younger civilizations, species that had only been in space for a few thousand years. Vexthul continued his speech. When we first encountered humans, they possessed only primitive rockets that barely reach their own moon. Now somehow they have faster-than-light travel and weapons that challenge our patrol fleets. This rapid advancement is suspicious. We believe they have stolen technology from other species. The accusation hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow, but he kept his expression neutral. It was true that human technology had advanced quickly after first contact, but not through theft. Human engineers and scientists had simply learned fast and worked harder than anyone expected. From her seat in the observation deck, Gina Park watched the proceedings with growing concern. Her training as a xenobiologist had taught her to read alien body language, and what she saw worried her. Many of the council members showed signs of fear mixed with anger. They were not just upset about broken rules. They were scared of what humanity might become. Gina's attention was drawn to a section of the chamber where the oldest species sat. The Void Walkers had been traveling between stars for over 50,000 years. Their tall, thin forms were wrapped in flowing robes that seemed to contain actual starlight. Elder Thaxmion, their representative, had not spoken once during the session. His large, dark eyes watched everything but revealed nothing. Speaker Killmoth of the Zenthari Collective stood next. The Zenthari were a hive mind species, and Kilmoth's crystalline body pulsed with soft light as thousands of individual thoughts merged into one voice. The collective has analyzed human expansion patterns, Kilmoth announced. Their colony placement shows strategic thinking that extends beyond simple resource gathering. They choose systems that create defensive networks and supply lines. This is not the random spread of refugees seeking new homes. This is the calculated expansion of a military power preparing for war. Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten. The Zenthari were not wrong, but they misunderstood the reason. Humanity had learned to think defensively because every first contact with alien species had started with warnings, threats, or outright hostility. When you are surrounded by civilizations that see you as a threat, you naturally start planning for the worst. The evidence is clear, Vexthul said, his voice growing louder. Humans are a dangerous species that refuses to follow galactic law. They expand without permission, arm themselves beyond reason, and show no respect for the order that has kept peace for millennia. More voices joined in agreement. Representatives from the Korth hegemony, the Silicon Confederacy, and a dozen other civilizations added their support to Vexthul's position. The chamber filled with translated demands for action, for punishment, for humanity to be put back in its proper place. Through it all, the Void Walkers remained silent. Finally, the voices died down, and the Council's chief arbiter, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical suit, spoke with a voice like distant thunder. The Council has heard the evidence and the concerns of its members. We have reached a decision regarding the human species and their unauthorized expansion. Hyunwoo straightened his shoulders. This was the moment that would decide the future of his species. Humanity will withdraw all colonies and settlements from systems beyond their home solar system within 30 standard galactic cycles. All human vessels will retreat to Earth space and remain there under Council monitoring. Any failure to comply will result in joint military action by Council member species to enforce this ruling. The words hit the chamber like a physical force. 30 cycles meant about 40 Earth days. It was impossible to evacuate 17 star systems in that time. The Council knew this. They were not offering humanity a chance to comply. They were giving them an ultimatum designed to fail. Hyunwoo looked up at the thousands of alien faces surrounding him. Some showed satisfaction. Others displayed what might have been pity in their species. A few seemed uncomfortable with the harsh sentence, but none spoke against it. I request 48 hours to consult with Earth's leadership regarding this decision, Hyunwoo said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite the vast size. Granted, the chief arbiter replied. You have 2 standard days to respond to the Council's ruling. As Hyunwoo turned to leave the central platform, he caught a slight movement from the Void Walker section. Elder Thaxmion gave the smallest possible nod, so brief that anyone not looking directly at him would have missed it. The ancient being's dark eyes met Hyunwoo's for just a moment, and something passed between them. Not quite a message, but an acknowledgement. Jinna noticed the exchange from her position in the observation deck. Her scientific mind immediately began analyzing what it could mean. The Voidwalkers were the oldest spacefaring species in known space. They had seen civilizations rise and fall, had witnessed the birth and death of entire stellar empires. If Elder Thaxmion was trying to communicate something to humanity's representative, it was important. As the council session ended and the various species began departing through their different atmospheric and gravitational zones, Jinna made her way toward the diplomatic quarters where Hyunwoo would be staying. She had to tell him what she had observed, and together they needed to figure out what the oldest species in the galaxy might know about humanity that even humans did not know about themselves. The next 48 hours would determine whether humanity had a future among the stars, or whether they would be forced back to their single world, caged like animals in a zoo for the entertainment of their alien captors. The edge of reality began to tear apart like wet paper. Admiral Vexthul watched his sensors go mad as space itself twisted into impossible shapes behind his fleet. The Devourer Vanguard was not arriving through normal hyperspace. They were cutting holes in the universe and crawling through from dimensions where the laws of physics worked differently. The first scout ship to emerge looked like a piece of living shadow shaped into something that might once have been a starship. It absorbed all light that touched it, creating a hole in space where nothing should exist. When Vexthul's weapons officer fired a warning shot, The energy beam simply vanished as if it had never been fired at all. "Sir, our weapons have no effect," the officer reported, his voice shaking. "The energy is being consumed somehow. It's like shooting at empty space." More devourer ships emerged from the tiers in reality. Each one was different in shape but the same in nature. They were entropy given form, creatures that existed to unmake everything around them. As they moved through normal space, stars began to dim in their wake. Entire asteroids simply stopped existing when the shadow ships passed near them. Fleet Admiral Young activated the communication systems aboard her flagship and broadcast on all frequencies throughout the galaxy. Her voice reached every civilized world, every space station, every ship that possessed the technology to receive long-range transmissions. "Citizens of the galaxy, I am Fleet Admiral Haewon Young of the first human civilization. What you are witnessing is the return of an enemy that your species have forgotten, but your genes remember. The entities emerging from dark space are called devourers. They do not conquer worlds or enslave populations. They erase them from existence entirely. Throughout the galaxy, billions of beings listen to the transmission with growing horror as they watch their instruments detect the impossible ships that were appearing at the edge of their space. 60,000 years ago, the first human galactic empire fought these entities and won, but at a cost that required the sacrifice of our entire civilization. We entered stasis and allowed the galaxy to rebuild, while we waited for their inevitable return. That time has come." On Proxima Centauri Station, Captain Sujin watched as the ancient human ships moved into formation around Admiral Vex Thul's confused fleet. The alien vessels looked like toys compared to the massive forms of humanity's hidden warships. But more importantly, they looked like the only hope of survival for everyone in the galaxy. "Captain, we're receiving orders from Fleet Admiral Jung," Wu Bin reported. "All human vessels are to evacuate non-combatants to safe zones and prepare to support the ancient fleet's operations." Sujin nodded, though she wondered what a modern human ship could possibly do to help vessels that possess technology beyond imagination. "Comply with all orders from the ancient fleet, and send a message to Earth. Tell them what's happening here." Back in the underwater facility on Earth, Dr. Lee and his team worked desperately to understand more of the ancient archives. Mi Young had made a breakthrough in translating the deepest records, and what she found explained everything about humanity's true nature. The Devourers can only be permanently destroyed by weapons that operate outside normal reality, she reported to Dr. Lee and Jinnah, but using those weapons requires a specific type of consciousness, one that combines advanced intelligence with primitive survival instincts. Jinnah studied the holographic displays showing the cosmic battle, beginning at the edge of the solar system. "That's why they created us. Modern humanity has the intelligence to understand the weapons, but still maintains the basic survival drives that can power them." Dr. Lee activated more of the facility's systems, and new displays showed weapon caches hidden throughout Earth's solar system. Each cache contained tools of war that had been built to fight entities from beyond normal space-time. The ancient humans didn't just hide ships, he realized. They hid weapons that require human consciousness to operate. "We're not just the heirs to their technology, we're the key to using it." The battle at the edge of space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Captain Min Ho Song piloted the Eternal Vigil against a Devourer ship 3 times its size. His vessel moved through multiple dimensions simultaneously, making it nearly impossible for the entropy beings to target him effectively. But the Devourers were learning. As more scout ships emerged from the tiers in reality, they began to adapt to the ancient human tactics. Weapons that had worked perfectly 60,000 years ago were becoming less effective as the enemy evolved. "Admiral Jung, we're detecting a problem," Minho reported from his ship. "The Devourers are adapting faster than they did in the original war. They've learned from our previous encounter." Jung studied the tactical displays from her flagship's bridge. The enemy was indeed showing new capabilities that had not existed during the First War. They were consuming not just matter and energy, but also information about how to fight the human vessels. "All ancient ships, implement Protocol 7, she ordered. "It's time to wake up our descendants." Throughout the solar system, the hidden weapon caches began to activate. On Luna Base, Admiral Shin watched in amazement as ancient armories revealed themselves beneath the moon's surface. Weapons that looked like they belonged in museums powered up with energy readings that dwarfed anything in the modern human arsenal. But these weapons would not fire for his trained soldiers. They remained inactive until Commander Hyunwoo Kim, who had just returned from the failed diplomatic mission, placed his hands on the control systems. The moment his consciousness touched the ancient controls, the weapons came alive. The weapons recognize human genetic patterns, Jinnah explained over the communication system from the underwater facility. But more than that, they recognize the combination of intelligence and survival instinct that only humans possess. We were literally created to be the perfect weapon wielders against entities that exist beyond normal reality. Captain Sujin found herself transported to the bridge of an ancient human battleship, the Dawn's Promise, which had emerged from hiding within an asteroid near Proxima Centauri. The ship's systems responded to her thoughts as if they had been waiting for her specifically. All human personnel, modern and ancient, prepare for combined operations, Fleet Admiral Jung announced. The Devourers are bringing their main force through the reality tiers. What you see now is just the beginning. The tiers in space widened, and through them came ships that defied description. Some looked like mathematical equations given physical form. Others appeared to be made of crystallized time itself. The largest emerged as a structure that seemed to contain entire universes within its hull. Admiral Vexthal faced the most important decision of his career. His fleet was caught between forces beyond his understanding. Ancient humans with impossible technology behind him, and entropy beings that could erase his ships from existence ahead of him. All council ships. This is Admiral Vexthal, he broadcast to his fleet. We stand with humanity against the cosmic threat. All vessels, follow the lead of the ancient human ships and engage the enemy. It was a decision that would save his species and dozens of others, because moments later the main Devourer invasion force began emerging from dark space. Ships the size of small moons poured through reality tiers, each one capable of consuming entire star systems, but they faced an enemy they had not expected, a galaxy united under human leadership, wielding weapons specifically designed to fight entities from beyond normal space-time. The ancient humans had spent 60,000 years preparing for this moment, and their modern descendants carried genetic memories of how to wage war against living entropy itself. Fleet Admiral Jung looked upon the massive Devourer fleet and spoke words that would echo through galactic history. We are humanity, guardians of reality, defenders of existence itself. We hid not from shame but from necessity, and we have never truly been gone. The true war for the survival of ordered reality had begun, and humanity stood ready to pay whatever price was necessary to ensure that life, consciousness, and hope would continue to exist in the universe.